the ups and downs and the roller coasters of business have never been that threatening because the purpose had us super locked in. And it's funny because I think that would be our purpose whether we worked here or not. And so you could survive any storm because of that why behind you. But I have buddies all the time, pitch business ideas at me. You're like, yeah, that would probably make some money, but I can tell just by your voice that you don't have the why behind you.
The wisdom through the emotional calluses of business is how you can kind of recognize that when you see it.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another Mountain Tough podcast. I am your host, Dustin Diefendorfer, and we are so glad that you're here. We absolutely love seeing you dive into these episodes week after week, and it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode that helps you with that mental toughness, that mental fitness, that mindset, so that you can stay dangerous and live this abundant life. If you are brand new to the show, just for listening to this show, I do want to let you know that you do get 6 weeks of free training on the Mountain Tough Plus app. All you need to do to get your 6 weeks for free is go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, and then enter the code MOUNTAINPOD, MTNPOD, and that will get you going for 6 weeks for free. Shifting gears now to today's guest. On the show today, we have Pete Roberts, the founder of Origin. This is a phenomenal conversation on entrepreneurship. So if you have that itch, if you have that desire to start your own thing, you are not going to want to miss this episode. So please stand by for Pete Roberts. I think you're spot on around purpose being the cornerstone of business, because Mountain Tough's purpose has always been this, we call it a positive bait and switch, where how Mountain Tough generally works is someone is going to draw like a Colorado elk tag, and they're going to be really scared of the elevation. They're from out east. They've never been out west. Yeah. Their buddies went out and got crushed by the mountain and told them about it, and they don't want that to happen to them. So they sign up for Mountain Tough. And in Mountain Tough, we're going to train them really well physically with our programming, but they're also going to be exposed to some mental toughness content. They're going to be exposed to some nutritional content and some spiritual content. They're going to be introduced to this like brotherhood and community, and all of a sudden they're going to start realizing, hey, I'm kind of better at work. I'm a better father. I'm better with my kids. And I just thought I was getting ready for this elk tag. And that's what we want to happen. Like, we want them to thrive in the backcountry, but we really want them to thrive in life. And because we've had that purpose since the beginning, the ups and downs and the roller coasters of business have never been that threatening because the purpose had us super locked in. And it's funny because I think that would be our purpose whether we worked here or not. And so you could survive any storm because of that why behind you. But I have buddies all the time, pitch business ideas at me. You're like, yeah, that would probably make some money, but I can tell just by your voice that you don't have the why behind you.
The wisdom through the emotional calluses of business is how you can kind of recognize that when you see it. It's what I like to say is the pulling power of purpose is a greater force than the pushing power of ideas, because ideas are fickle. Everybody has them. But purpose is gravity. It's the only thing that's going to pull you towards it. And that's why so many ideas die, because there's no substance behind them, no gravity behind it. And so when you have that, it can be special. And then when it turns into work, it's still something you die to do. It's like it's still the thing you have to do it physically, like eating or sleeping. You physically have to do it, or you don't feel alive if you don't. And that's where like I think I think business and kind of entrepreneurial and long-term strategic vision mesh to make something special, which just sounds like you've done. And you're in that decade, uh, that 10-year sprint. I think in 10 years too. Like
Hmm.
I think in 10-year sprints. People think I'm crazy for that, but it's the only way I know how to do it.
When did the purpose for Origin and what Origin's ethos are, did that settle into your heart a long time before Origin was even a thing?
Uh, before 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 we were manufacturers and building factories and everything, I knew that I didn't really understand the true influence I'll call it the outer world had on the inner world, right? I live in a little town in Industry, Maine, 700 people's population. We have selectmen meetings and the town votes on things. I come from a very in Maine, my youth in Maine. I'm from Massachusetts originally, but I grew up since 8 years old in Maine. And I didn't realize how much like the market could influence how the policy could influence and how all these things influenced my community and my world
Hmm.
until it hit me. Regardless of watching all the mills shut down, all the factories close, paper mills, textile mills, Bass shoe, footwear plants. I watched all those close down during high school, and I saw my friends' parents getting laid off and everything, and saw some of the drug start, kind of the drugs and alcohol starting to infect the community. But it really didn't hit me how much the outer world affected the inner world until the recession in 2008 and 2009 when I lost everything. And I was
Hmm.
just up here in Maine doing my thing, and all of a sudden I lost 60% of my business overnight. And so I knew my next phase of life, and that was my first decade of opportunity. I break it up into four parts: 0 to 20, you're learning; 20 to 60, you're doing; and hopefully at 60, you're enjoying the fruits of your labor. Anything great in life takes 10 years, so you have four chances. And so I was in chance one, right? That first decade, 20 to 30 or 20 to 28, whatever it was. And I ended up losing everything. Um, and an advisor's like, "Hey, man, you got three more chances. So like,
Hmm.
what are you waiting for?" And I knew that the second thing was I need to control my destiny and build something that will transcend a recession or anything like the outer world will affect. Like, I'm not going to allow this next thing to affect what we're doing. And that was the original desire,
Hmm.
and that purpose to find something. And I knew I needed to make something physical. I needed to build something physical. And that led me down the path of starting Origin.
What was the first thing?
The first thing we made,
No, the first thing that you lost 60% of in one day.
um, I had started a new media. I dropped out of college in 99, 2000 maybe. Actually, just re-enlisted last week. So it's going to take me 30 years to get my degree. I didn't realize I had 80 credits already, or close to 80 credits. They're going to give me
Dang.
30 for life, and then I just got to take 10 credits worth of courses, and I'm going to get my degree. So I'm pretty stoked about that.
That's awesome.
So I start in January, and I'm going to finish what I started. But I dropped out of college. Um, I started a new media company. Design. It was a design firm. I'm a designer by, like a artist designer, and we were pretty cutting edge, and we did some really cool work for a lot of hunting brands. This is back in the 2001, 2003, 2005. We did built this brand, Extreme Dimension Wildlife Calls. They were the first digital call company. Phantom Calls. We did some stuff in like bow hunting. We did all this stuff for Beagleware. I don't know if you remember Beagleware back in the day.
Hmm.
All the marketing for them and design stuff. And then we also did stuff for like Quicksilver Rosignol Group, Park City, and both consumptive and non-consumptive outdoors kind of stuff. Uh, and that was the core of our business, actually. And a lot of people don't know this, and I don't know if I've ever shared it, but that was the core of our business. And these were big companies. um, relying on, multiple sales channels. Mostly at that time it wasn't web sales, it was distribution. And very quickly through the trickle down effect, our business was like almost gone.
Hmm.
60%
Yeah.
of it almost over within like a week or two. I canceled projects and accounts that pulled out and stuff like that. And I wasn't prepared. I had no pivot skills back then, like I do now.
It's pretty interesting because it's counterintuitive. I mean, most people would think that having big clients like that, that you're pretty safe and secure compared to like a design agency that's doing great work more locally. But it is a good example of how, in a lot of ways, the house of cards can fall on any of us at any time if we're not thinking about, especially thinking about controlling our own destiny and all the variables it's going to take to make that happen. Because, having clients like Quicksilver is a good spot to be in for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it was good. Um, I mean, I grew up not with a whole lot, so my only the only way I knew I was going to find freedom was by building my own world. And and so I was world building, kind of this company, this media design firm. Um, then I lost everything, and that was a big wake up call.
Hmm.
Definitely knocked whatever chip off my shoulder I once had in a pretty big way. Didn't lose my home, luckily, that my little timber frame home. It was more of a cabin than anything, but lost everything else and had to rebuild from scratch, literally from scratch.
Hmm. Yeah, so kind of like a rock bottom moment that defined your life.
Yeah, yeah. Once you experience that, uh, where the bank's not going to lend you any money, where like you don't have a family that's wealthy, you're not going to be able to borrow money from your family or anything like that. And it's just like you in the woods with nothing, and you have two young kids at home,
Hmm.
and you have to carry the weight of that. Like that for me was way harder than running a brand, doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year and 400 employees. Like that's easy. That
Hmm.
back then, when I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the institutional knowledge, I didn't have um, the earned knowledge. Uh, that was way harder. Not necessarily scarier because I didn't know enough to be scared. I was naive in that sense, but way harder. Uh, because you only could go certain places. It's like there isn't 10 paths to get there. There's one path, and it's an arduous path, and it's freaking burdened with old trees that you need to cut your way through, and there's only one direction you can go, and you can't back
Hmm.
up. It's like you can't back up. You just got to keep going forward. And so going through that, just taught me a lot about myself, about life, about relationships, um, about how the world worked, how capital worked, and about business.
Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting how the hardest times in our life are phenomenal about building capacity,
Yeah,
especially if we're open to them teaching us that. But the capacity building that comes out of some of the most painful experiences
yeah,
is pretty wild because at that time everything is extremely challenging, but if you look back at that time now, everything that it taught you is what makes you who you are.
yeah, yeah, for sure. No, it definitely does, and I'll never go back there. Although I've come close, very close. Uh, but yeah, I'll never go back there. I see the signs. I see the lead indicators now to
Mm-hmm.
things and catch things early. And it's like listening to a song for the first time and then after the 100th time knowing it, truly knowing the song. Uh, I tell people I'm like a conductor, like a CEO is a conductor of the symphony, and I can tell when to like bring the different instruments is, but I can also tell that your instrument's out of tune and it's either too much tension or not enough tension, and it's the tension on the strings that allows the music to play, but it's got to be in tune, and you got to come in to the symphony at the right time, and you can just tell when something's dragging. And I try to look out for lead indicators, and sometimes there's lag indicators because you're not paying attention to everything. But you can only learn that through experiential knowledge and by doing and learning. You don't learn that shit in school. You learn that
Mm-hmm.
in life.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah, the school's not going to teach you any of that stuff at
No,
all.
no.
For more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org. Your story from an outsider is super fascinating now, looking at where we've gone as a country since you started Origin. So, starting in 2011, it's almost like in many ways, it's like a courage is contagious story,
Yeah.
because I remember keeping an eye on you guys in the early days, and you guys were the outsiders. Like, hey, we're gonna bring back American manufacturing, and it's hard and it's gonna take a tremendous amount of work, but we're committed to it. We're gonna do it. And it felt like, from an outside perspective, you guys were the only ones. You were the only ones making the stance. You were the only one making that commitment. You were letting the world see how difficult and challenging it was, which was contagious. And then you started to see these glimpses of people wanting to be like Origin. They're like, I have seen that path because they showed me that path.
Mm-hmm.
We can create this awesome thing in America. We can create this awesome thing in Montana. And then you have the political changes recently
Yes.
of like what Trump has done with the tariffs, and the tariffs trying to force American manufacturing. It's been an interesting journey to watch from the outside, because I remember the early days where there was kind of this sense of like, those Origin guys are crazy, man. No one can do it anymore.
Yeah, I I don't think we've lost that. I hope we haven't. That insatiable desire for this purpose-driven thing we're doing. Um, we set a goal of 100 years, and so I know it'll transcend me. And so, if you relate that to how businesses should be built, which most businesses get built and acquired, or go public, or merge, or whatever. The goal for Origin is to never have to do that. It's to keep it private, um, and domestic. And I would say that it's the naivete that was the superpower, along with a bit of ADHD and timing is everything. It's pretty impossible, uh, and because of that, it's a very blue ocean,
Mm.
because we can handle the pressure because we go deep. Like we're swimming in the black, and in the depths of the ocean, which is there's scary creatures down there, and we're the
Hmm.
biggest monster. And we know that, and so we're watching and listening, and so we wake up every day like it's our first day on the job, and our asses are on fire, and we're gonna rip faces off. We got
Hmm.
to eat every day. The monster has to eat. Time, capital, capacity. Those are the macros. It's fats and carbs and protein, and it's time, capital, and capacity. That's what the monster eats, and if you're not careful, it'll eat you, right?
Hmm.
So that idea to build everything on a U.S. supply chain domestically, from the cotton beneath our feet to the components and labor, I know no brand is going to follow us there at the depths we're going to do it, because it's without compromise, exhausting all efforts to source and make in America, not lifting up one product and saying, "Hey, this is made in America," and then 99% of everything else is made in a foreign country by slave labor.
Yep.
Um, everything, everything, everything we do is, 100 cents of the dollar goes back into the American supply chain. You're not supposed to build a brand that way, and footwear and apparel just happen to be what Origin makes. And is it a brand? Yes, it is. Origin's a brand, um, but it's a movement at this. We could build anything, because if you put that wave of freedom on anything, you know what it represents. It's a strong symbol, of reclamation, reshoring, restoring communities, uh,
Hmm.
and then the word origin. It's the rebirth, right? So it is the rebirth, the renaissance of manufacturing, and so you didn't even have to have a made in USA tag. If you buy something with that wave on it, you know exactly where it came from and who is responsible, and that the dollar spent is staying in America. And there's no sorcery or secrecy or wizards behind curtains, you know, Berry amendments where you can have most of it made in a foreign country and then brought in put together here. Nothing
Yeah.
like that. So, in that sense, it's crazy. It's crazy enough to work.
Hmm.
It's crazy enough to work if and it might take 100 years, but it's working. We're
Did
scaling.
you did you hit some places where you're like, this is done? Like we're not gonna make it 24 more hours.
I mean, I live in that space. Um, no, just once, as a young naive entrepreneur in the second business, Origin. Hopefully, my last one. Well, Jocko Fuel is the other business, that we started, but only once. And that was early on. A couple years into the business, we built this factory out in the woods behind my house here, and found some old sewing machines from the World War II era. Rescued this old abandoned loom and started and brought it back to life over the course of a winter. And I was just burning whatever cash came in the door went out. And then and I didn't even know what cash burn was back then, because I wasn't a real businessman like I am now. But I just knew that we were spending more than we were making, and we relied on daily sales to keep us afloat. Then it got to a point where the burn outpaced the income versus expenses thing. And
Hmm.
I remember seeking advisement from somebody, and he was just like, "Pete, your ideas aren't special. You're not special. Nobody gives a shit, man, what you're doing." And he's like, "Do you believe in it?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't have the money to support." He goes, "Do you have a home?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Don't talk to me about money, capital." He's like, "Go remortgage your house. Next question." And I was just
Dang.
like, so I left there, and I was able to extract maybe $100,000 from my little cabin, dumped it into the company, and I didn't look back.
Dang.
Yeah, and then it's 2011, and then 2017, connected with Jocko, and he was just like, "Man, I love what you're doing. I want to get involved. I want to help proliferate the message and help tell the world, and I've got a platform, and like the world needs to know what's going on here. And so we shook hands and started working together. And he's my business partner. Been a great business
Mm-hmm.
partner. Um, yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. There's always hiccups. I mean, fuck, dude, we lost $6 million last year, not paper money. Like I'd never lost money since we started the company, and we lost money last year trying to scale too fast. Like, you get a little bit, kind of over your skis and think you can have a 90% kegger, and you come to find out you can't. And
Mm-hmm.
you invest in inventory and human resources and hire the best of the best and come in and start running it like a, you know, like a stage three company when you're really only a stage one or stage two company. So we made a massive tuition payment last year, that I've had the course correct over the course of the last 8 months, and we pulled ourselves out of it. But yeah, I mean, there's always that. There's always that's my long answer for a short question. Always always under duress, but God, I love it because
Mm-hmm.
I know how to swim, like, and it's
Yeah.
black, and we're the biggest monster, right? And so it's wonderful in that sense. And I'm not saying the biggest monster size wise. I'm saying this is our environment, this is our ocean. Um, it's like the mats in jiu-jitsu. Like we're black belts in manufacturing in America, and we understand our customer and we understand ourselves, who we are and who we're not. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot lately I have two young daughters, they're 10 and 13, and
Mhm.
we're going into our 6th year of homeschool, and we spend a lot of time, especially with my older daughter, around entrepreneurship stuff. And she loves, even even when she was like 6, for some reason she just loved baking. And we've always been believers that, like, we're going to pour gas onto those passions that we see,
Got to.
and just see where that goes. Because when I look at my world now, I see successful people that are really passionate about the thing that they've kind of self-taught themselves to do.
Mhm.
And when you have that ability to learn and self-teach, and you have that passion, it's kind of like the sky's the limit. And so we want our kids to know that. And what has become kind of fascinating to me is, in my world for the last 10 years, it has been talked about a lot. It's been attractive. It's been the trend to build a company to sell it. And us being in the hunting industry, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen the Stone Glacier sale to Vista that turned into Revelist. Before that, we saw Meat Eater do a lot of acquisitions of small hunting brands that we knew the owners and founders of really well. Before that, we saw a bunch of like die-hard hunters work at Sitka, and then Sitka get acquired by Gore, and then we saw most of those die-hard guys leave. And so we've seen a lot of these examples, and because I've been close to a lot of these founders, just being in Bozeman, I've seen a lot of these founders that I know well build something cool, have a acquisition happen that potentially creates generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched that founder, in their body language and in their words, identify that as a failure. And so you can build something cool, you can sell it for lots of money, and you can watch that company get gutted or not. Sometimes it goes fine. Sometimes there's a complete rebrand and reorganization. But in both cases, the founder many times will define that big check as a failure. And that founder has that big check and has to go find a brand new purpose, which has led me down this interesting study of really this idea of like building something quickly and flipping it quickly is relatively a new phenomenon. It's not something that you're going to find in the history books. It's not something you're going to find in how companies were built in the Roman Empire, how they were built in Europe. And even in America, it's like a less than 50-year phenomenon.
It is less. Yeah, you're right. Few people know that.
So it's
impressive that you understand the story of capitalism.
Which it's crazy because it left me feeling with and I've had this feeling several other times in my life, that everything the world is telling you is wrong.
Yeah.
And we're just falling into this trap of doing what the world is telling us to do. And that's why I think it's so cool that you have this 100-year goal.
Yeah.
I mean, the 100-year goal is would be a lot more relatable to the history of the world and how legacies are built and dynasties are built and companies are built and communities are built. But now thinking about what you know and what I just shared in like your own family, like how do you communicate some of this stuff? Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code MOUNTAINTOUGH, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com.
Some really good stuff in there. First of all, I think it's awesome that you're feeding your girls the fuel that they're passionate about. That was a huge thing for me when I was growing up. being an ADHD kid, and I didn't plug into the system, and um, and I was very hands-on, and I didn't have the attention span for anything. But the things I was interested in, my mom did fuel those things. Like we didn't have television. We had two channels growing up, so I used to make socks out of fleece. She taught me how to sew, when I was a 12, 13-year-old kid, and I was very interested in making things and with my hands, and so she always fueled that. And for Christmas, I would get art supplies. I'd get Prismacolor colored pencils and paper, something small things, but important things for my growth as an artist and designer. So I think that's awesome. Um, we didn't have any access to knowledge growing up. I certainly didn't. I'm a 46-year-old man, Gen-Xer, child of 79. Right on the cusp between, kind of the old world and the new world, the digitally native world, still building forts and burning down forests as a kid, right? Leaving the sterno running.
Yeah.
But transitioning into, we're the first adopters of technology too, as, 18, 19, 20-year olds. And then first to have children in the new age, the truly new age. They were born into a digitally native society.
Mhm.
And trying to keep them tethered to something real. That was what I focused on. And I'm going to answer your question, and it's going to make sense by the time I'm done. I didn't let my kids have technology till they were 14 years old. My wife and I stripped the television out of the house, except for we had a small TV they could watch like DVDs on, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but stripped out the cable television, or dish TV, whatever it was. So we didn't have that. The kids didn't have access to that, and they weren't allowed to have phones either, until they were 14 and started playing sports and all that stuff. And so we really forced them into growing up like a Gen Xer would. That was the goal. I thought that the Xers, although we were abandoned as children, feral, very feral, right? I mean, I had my first surgery at 13, my second reconstruction at 15, and my third reconstruction at 16. I tell people that, they're like, "What the frig?" Like we lived
Dude.
hard. December 5th, I'm having my shoulder completely replaced, ball cut off, new ball put on, right? Like we ran hard and feral, and
Mm.
we broke bones, and we injured ourselves, and we tore ligaments, and we lived that life without helmets on the ski mountains, or on bicycles, and in the woods, and carving bows and guns and arrows and spears out of
Yeah.
sticks. And
Yeah.
it was wonderful. And so we tried to give our kids the same upbringing. Now my son, he'll be 23 in a few days, and my daughter is going to be 20 in December. Uh, I think I think that because they were, when we started Origin, they were little, and they got to see how this thing was built, like cutting the trees down, bringing in sand, compacting the sand, laying the frame for the concrete, pouring the concrete, erecting the timbers, building the factory. They were responsible for helping with certain things, after school. And we had this little timber frame factory, which is, through the woods here.
Mhm.
And so they got to see that. They didn't feel, they never felt it, like what it meant to have something and then lose something. My son says, I just remember when somebody showed up and took Grizzly, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, Dad, we had this four-wheeler, and it was a Yamaha
The
Grizzly,
grizzly.
and it was my favorite memory." And he's like, "I just remember somebody showed up and they took it," and I was like, "Where's Grizzly going?" And that's what he remembers from like losing everything, was like
Mm,
the four-wheeler
the
leaving the
four-wheeler
dooryard.
named Grizzly.
Which is funny how kids remember things. But they both shot there, like they have lifetime hunting licenses. And I was building a company, so I relied on my wife's family to give my kids the knowledge in the woods. They harvested deer, turkeys, ruffed grouse every year, ducks, geese, waterfowl, both of them, both my daughter and son,
Hmm.
were avid hunters growing up. My son also at at 12 got 12 or 13 got his trapping license. And so he went to courses to learn how to trap. And we have a big cranberry bog about a half mile through the woods. And he would get up before school when he was just a little kid. I didn't want them to be scared of the dark. I didn't want them to be scared of the woods or what was in the woods.
Hmm.
They are the apex predator. And so we started them off in the woods very early. Again, relying heavily on my wife's family for that because I was head downs building a company, losing a company, then building a company. But he would get up, 5 o'clock in the morning, through the woods by himself with a flashlight, half a mile into the bog, check his beaver traps, come back. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's tremendous. And so the work ethic and mindset um, is the DNA that we try to instill on top of um, on top of building a legacy. I also remember the first time I made money, and I remember sitting the kids down and like showing them like the check.
Hmm.
Like it was like the first $75,000 check I ever like wrote out, to myself. Because I always didn't take a check, like I remember like we made money, and this is what, and it could have been $10 million back then, right? But I
Yeah.
wanted them to understand that like everything that went into just this moment, this is now the kind of the fruits of that labor, which you witnessed, which you were part of, and it was after 7 years that I finally got paid.
Hmm.
It was after 7 years of labor. And then that came fast and it compounded and, success happened. Um, and, and they never took anything for granted. They never, they went into the world. They were very quiet around their parents, their family, what their family did. It was very personal. They didn't gloat. Um, they wanted to carve their own paths. They didn't lean on it, leverage it, anything.
Hmm.
Um, but both of them went to school knowing their responsibility was going to be to carry the legacy. Without me telling them that,
They knew it.
they knew it. They knew it instinctually because it was part of their DNA at that point.
Hmm.
And so my son went to Bentley in Waltham, Massachusetts, college athlete, played lacrosse, graduated in May, and now he works for Jocko Fuel as the Northeast sales rep. And my daughter is in fashion and textile design school in NC State, North Carolina, and she's gonna be the other end of the
Dang.
physical making of the product. And so,
You
yeah,
weren't forcing it though.
no, that was my whole point to the story was what I forced was them being raised as as a Gen Xer. And I also told them early on, like, because your generation is so consumed with what's behind that screen, you don't understand the advantage you have as an
Hmm.
individual when you can problem solve, when you can look at things objectively and problem solve, when you have emotional intelligence and resourcefulness. And you got to have resourcefulness when you're out in the woods and setting traps by yourself as a 12-year-old
Yeah.
boy or harvesting your first deer, as a 9-year-old girl, right? So you got to be resourceful.
Yeah, you got to be able to solve problems.
Yeah, you got to, and that's really, really, really important. And be personable and likable and carry on a conversation, hold a conversation. Um, listen more than talk. All those fundamental truths that make a good human and a productive member of society. We tried to instill in our kids, and so far it's worked.
So with that in mind, do you feel like it's a bad idea or a broken system for us to be teaching college kids and just the media and society communicating it a positive to build companies to flip them quickly.
I mean, I'm on both ends of this, right? Like I have Origin and Jocko Fuel, right? One is a one we're building as a 100-year brand. The other one I have a private equity partner in.
Mm.
I'm in Manhattan meeting with the bankers. I was just there last week. Um, I tell people if you go into the Big Apple, you don't realize there's a wormhole, and in that wormhole, there's some shit. People work at a different level. Like they're the way when you understand how money and capital works and what you can do with it, um, it can be pretty powerful because it can if if wielded the right way, if used the right way, the things you want to do um, are possible. The experiences you want to have, the things you want to build are possible. There's a lot of things I want to do
Mm.
outside of Origin and other companies I want to build, other ideas I have. I'm planning on spending my personal private equity to do that, not other people's money, because I don't want to be controlled by the man. And so I am on both sides of it. The side of building transcendent businesses and the side of building capital and equity that you can leverage and invest. I'm
Mm.
I'm I'm
You see
split.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm split. So I say to each his own. This is America. Um, uh, Work in the gray and win. That's what I say. This is
Mm-hmm.
America. Work in the gray and win. And that's the gray of your comfort zone, what you're comfortable doing, you're scared or fearful of doing something. Like you're gonna have to step into the unknown, just like going hunting, right? Like going into the woods. You're gonna have to step into the unknown and face that thing you're scared of. Um, and I think that's part of this thing we call the American dream.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app.
But for these young entrepreneurs who think they're going to build something fast and flip it, it's a lie. You will not build anything meaningfully fast.
Mm.
unless you get really lucky. You can build something meaningful over 5, 7, 10 years and sell that thing, and you're gonna gain a bunch of wisdom and a bunch of knowledge. I just don't want anybody believing that they can spend 36 months on something and flip it for any meaningful amount of money because it's just not possible. And so if you're chasing money, um, you're chasing a ghost. Uh, I would say don't chase the ghost, chase the white whale. And the white whales you're gonna hunt. Like a whaling ship is gonna go into the ocean for years sometimes, and they're gonna render the fat. And what I
Mm.
say to my team every day is we render the fat. And
Yeah.
and it's a stinky job. It's a greasy job. It's a dirty job, but you got to render the fat. And anything meaningful in life, even if you're gonna flip something, sell something, build something and sell it for a multiple of EBITDA or a multiple of revenue, it's going to take time, and more power to you if you can. Just ask yourself why you're doing it. What is the purpose of it? Is it to say I did this thing? I nobody believed in me. I was able to do this thing, and sometimes that's a reason enough. Or is it's because you're doing something else, you want to do something else, build something, you're trying to break the cycle of familial trauma, like a lot of entrepreneurs, we have, trauma, like we're trying to break the cycle of, and it's all of those things. And to me, it's all good as long as you don't let greed disguise the truth, because the way that America has gone from a conscious society of conscious capitalism, understanding capitalism is for not just for the owner of the business or the means of production, but it's also for the people. That seems to have been um, disguised and retrained, and folks abandoned the last 30 years with the way that our policies have shaped America. We've
Yeah.
gone the wrong direction to a nation of consumers versus a nation of makers. And you can be a maker of things or you can be a taker of things. And right now we're taking more than we're given. And so we got to find a way to make things again. To me, that's really important, for moving forward as a nation. And we've been preaching that since before it was politicized, way before, years before it was politicized, because it was the right thing to do. It's what America was founded on, were these
Hmm.
principles.
What is the state of the union on that now
Mm,
compared to like 2011? The state of the union on the renaissance of the maker.
yeah. I do believe I do believe we can have a renaissance. I think it might be happening. Um, I'm a fan of the Renaissance. My minor in college was art history, so um, I've been to Florence. Like the way the artists flooded in and had this Renaissance was phenomenal. It's going to take more than one person or one company. It's going to take a shared consciousness of like-minded individuals that are willing to risk it all to rebuild what was lost in a new and better and different and more efficient way. That's also key. Um, It's going to take thought leaders and it's going to take capital. I'm planning on continuing to invest lots of money. I mean, if you look at the total breadth and width of what we've done, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's way more than that actually.
Hmm.
It's going to take, hundreds of more like billions of dollars to truly rebuild. And it took 30 years to shut it down. It's going to take a couple decades to turn it on. You can't flip a switch. You can't just change some tariffs and expect everything to get better. There has to be a buy-in, right? Because every 4 years things change, and so there has to be buy-in, from the risk takers. There has to be buy-in that this is the direction that is going to be supported by the federal government, and Wall Street. And I think getting Wall Street there is going to be tricky until the consumers shift their behaviors to drive change in the brands that will not drive change in Wall Street or policy, right?
Hmm.
So right now everything pushes downhill, and so you got to push it back uphill, and that only comes through our personal behavior, and that's going to take awareness and conversations like this to re-educate people. And I tell folks, like, that's what Origin is here for, like It's an understanding of your relationship with your country through the products that we make and how you're impacting the supply chain right back to the farmer. Um, so so yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take. I just know that we are the tip of the spear and leading by example. And I know a lot of folks are watching. Whether they're customers or not doesn't matter. Like my theory on business is mind share, followed by soul share, followed by market share. If I go in
Mm-hmm.
reverse, it's fickle. I want to go deep with you, not wide.
Mm-hmm.
When I get you, and you're my peer in this thing, then I get you for life. Market share is digging into your pockets, and I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Um, like mind share, soul share, and then market share is the thing that follows those two if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing some glimmers of hope of others that are kind of following that origin path?
There's definitely some folks doing some cool shit. Um, I don't know about in our industry, like footwear and apparel, but I've got some friends like doing that have started huge fabrication companies. They have paint shops and CNC, Haas CNC machining and wood products and all sorts of all sorts of stuff. I think the conversation is an important one. Um, I do believe that the federal government does need to get involved with a capital campaign to build and support factories um, for protection, for just for you know for the safety of our nation, because we don't have the infrastructure to support making a million pairs of boots if we needed to, or a
Mm-hmm.
million pairs of pants in any time, because we rely so much on foreign labor. So if our borders were all shut off, we couldn't make what we needed, and that's a scary place to be. So I think the federal government needs to look at just defense, and how we would defend ourselves. That's one side of it, and then I think the federal government owes the American people what they took, what they stripped. The backroom deals with powers in Washington on both sides, both shit, Reagan, Clinton, like those backroom deals they made for the World Trade Organization, trying to nation build,
Mm-hmm.
and stripping the soul of the middle class and sending it overseas, I think was very wrong. Um, and Ross Perot warned us there was going to be a giant sucking sound, and it was more like a slow drip, and it dripped and dripped and dripped, and we almost didn't notice until now.
Yeah.
And they owe the American people what they stripped, and so they can give the American people that in form of dollars and grants or loans to help rebuild the nation, which then in turn helps build our defense system. Because it's
Yeah.
us, it's the people that is the wealth of the country. It's not the paper. It's the hands that go into the work that make the American dollar valuable. It's nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It's the people behind it. It's the people that actually live here doing the work. That's why it's valuable. The only reason it's valuable. So there's a lot to be done. A lot the government could could help do if they truly focused on it. If they truly focused on it, I don't know if they will. Like and I haven't relied on that. I certainly haven't. Yeah, like we received a grant for 500 grand in 2017. That's the only money we've ever received from the state of Maine. Every other dime has been out of our own pockets, money we've made and reinvested, and
Dang.
to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars at this point.
Yeah. It's not. It's like it's up to us to self rescue.
No one's
Just
coming to
like,
save you.
yeah. Well, Pete, thank you, man.
Yeah,
I love your story. I love what you guys have done, and I think it is courage is contagious, and I think that you've done that for a lot of people. And hearing what you've done with like your own children and everything is inspirational. So appreciate you, man.
yeah,
Appreciate you
no,
jumping on and sharing that.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It was a good conversation. Um, I do a daily vlog, which folks can check out. a YouTube on YouTube. I do it every day. A vlog. I have a guy who edits it and uploads it. But it's
Nice.
these types of thoughts that we just talked about every day, different topics. And if people want to check that out, it's on YouTube/Pete Roberts, I think is what it is. And um, if anybody's interested in the story of Origin or Jocko Fuel, we've pretty much captured it all, and it's out there on the interwebs. Like
Yeah.
look for it, and it's out there. It's fun. I look back thinking somebody else did it. Not sure I would do it again. You got to be a naive kid with a lot to prove.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a lot of things we wouldn't do again if we
Yeah,
knew how
right.
bad they hurt.
And congratulations on what you're doing too, man. It's awesome. Almost a decade in.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 10-year rules is no joke.
Oh.
I mean, Bert Soren actually did a Tough Fest speech here a couple years ago at our event, and his whole speech was the 10-year rule.
Yeah.
And it's 10 years of hard work before you probably even know a business's name or the founder's name. And a lot of times it's 10 more years behind that of what their childhood taught them or what life taught them. And it's so accurate. I mean, everything's rolling in these 10-year chunks.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well,
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
you.
All right.
Thanks
Bye.
much.
What a phenomenal conversation with Pete. So much cool stuff there when it comes to American manufacturing. So much amazing content there when it comes to how difficult but how important it is to bring manufacturing back to America, with Origin being at the forefront, at the tip of the spear on that endeavor. Remember, every single episode we are looking for that golden nugget. What can we take away from this episode and apply to our lives? Most of this conversation we talked about business, but the big golden nugget for me was definitely when he got into that short conversation of how he raised his kids. He talked about raising his kids as a Gen-Xer, so out in the world, exercising, riding bikes, out in the woods, trap lines, no TV, no phones till they were 14. And what he was trying to do was develop the mindset before they entered the real world. That was really, really profound in the way that he talks about that structure. For sure is a golden nugget. Mindset always determines methods, and that's what he did with his own children. Thanks for being here. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.